So the first question is actually a question that I will pose to everyone, but I will start with you, Irene. And it's because I was thinking about starting this from a place of meaning and trying to understand all of you better, and trying to understand on those nights when you get home and you're so tired and you're just thinking, oh God, I have to do it again tomorrow. I wanted to understand, what is your why? What is the most meaningful part of your work or of the theme? Because we've been introduced to the different themes that you're speaking of. What is the most meaningful part of your work, of your theme? What is your why, Irene?
Good night. Something. What is my why? When I go to sleep and when I need to rise up in the morning, is knowing that God has planted in me a vision to transform lives through transitions and through all of those things, but also that He's transforming me. And I always say, a little song my mother taught me when I was young was, little by little, Jesus is changing me. And if He's not done with me, then I wake up. So I know that I wake up in the morning because God is not done with transforming my own life before I even transform other people's lives, not even my children. I'm on a transformation journey myself, so that keeps me going.
Oh, beautiful. When you're mentoring people, when you're counseling people, what are some key areas in people's lives that maybe you're not aware of? And I'll give this as an example. I mean, we've all heard of midlife crisis and understanding that there's this big thing that happens midlife, which, what would we define as midlife now? Just to be politically correct before I say a number and everyone's like, that ain't me. I ain't going through that. But, about 45. Yeah, I was going to say going into 50s maybe, But what I didn't hear about and what I kind of experienced was a quarter life crisis. And I remember just being like, I'm only 25. Why am I feeling all these things? And having a sense of identity crisis. So are there some key moments in people's lives, key transitional moments that you encounter in your work that people might not be aware of, that you delve into frequently in your work?
So when I talk about my little topic, my 10-minute topic, I will actually go through the lifespan and talk about different transition points. But the one I specialize in is exactly that, the quarter life crisis. There is such a thing as a quarter life crisis that happens between 25 and 30. You've left college, you're not quite under your parents' care, you're on your own, you're navigating career, you're trying to figure out if you're going to get married or not. So that's a big one, and I specialize in that. Then there's actually the midlife crisis that I don't like to call the crisis. It's a midlife transition. That's what it is. It's a crisis if you're not aware and you're not informed. So there's the midlife transition. And then there's another less known transition called marriage. That's another area that I help people with. A marriage is a huge transition. You're inviting somebody else to do life with you, and you're going to have to make it work somehow. And that's a major transition. So those are the three big ones, but I'll mention in due course just the other areas that
Did you want to jump into the topic?
Yeah.
If you've got those ready to go, let's get into it.
So I want to start by saying that transitions are a given. The very fact that we're sitting here, we're all over 12, 13, 14, 20, maybe 20, yeah? You're still 20? Yeah, okay. The very fact that we're sitting here means we have all transitioned. We've all gone through transitions. And I want to talk about 7 major transitions of life. The 7 major ones are from womb to world. That's a major transition. I remember having had my son, and we step into the car to go home, and we're on Langata Road. That's when it was a single carriageway. It was a single carriageway once. And we're going home, and in front of us is this huge truck belching the worst fumes possible. And all I could think of, what kind of world have I brought my little child into? And I wanted to swallow him back, preserve him from the world. So that's a major transition, not just for mom, but for baby. Baby has been in the womb. It's been air-conditioned, warm water, I think. It's whatever it's called, the stuff he was in there, he's come out into the world, and it's different. There's a shift and a change. That's the first biggest transition we all go through, the fact that we're sitting in here. The second major transition is from infant to toddler, also called terrible twos, but I want to change that and say it doesn't have to be terrible, it can be terrific, depending on whether we are informed and equipped. So that's another major life transition. The next major one that we all know is teenage. In teenage, let me just go back to the toddler. The toddler is transitioning from being fully reliant on mom to being independent. They're crawling, they are toddling, that's what it is. They're toddling, they are wanting to experience the world for themselves. So at least physically, they detach from mom and they want to get on their own. It's a major transition. Teenage is a transition from being the child to getting into adulthood. We change, our hips, the boys deepen their voices, the stuff is happening because there's a transition happening. And we're coming from, always, as you think about transitions, think of them as I'm coming from the known to the unknown. And that's what can create a crisis. And it doesn't have to be a crisis when we know what to expect. The next big transition, Sharon, is that transition of I'm done with college. Often parents will say, if you're done with your first degree or that tertiary level education, you're on your own. Like if you want to do your master's, most parents, you're on your own, like fend for yourself. And that's a huge transition. And the young person who's 25, around 25 to about 30, they're making huge decisions. They're detaching from home and they're getting into a world of work. They're trying to figure out who am I going to marry? Am I going to even get married? They're trying to figure out where shall I live geographically, because obviously we don't always have to live where our parents. We are launching out. It's a huge transition, and I'm really excited that the research is now really delving into that age group and saying, you know what, this is a real transition, and somebody needs to help those people. One of those people I can help. And then the next major transition we all know is midlife, also called crisis. I want to say transition. Now, if you had asked me before I transitioned into midlife that whether women go through this, I thought, no. I thought it was a preserve of men. I thought they're the ones who transition, buy Volta boots, what's they buy? Yeah, sports cars, the shades come on, and the leather jacket, yeah. I thought it was a preserve. I really thought it was a preserve of men until I myself went through that, and I'll share my story in a little bit. And then the next transition is, I want to call it retirement, but recently I heard someone describe it as retire, you know, like the tire on a car? Retired, you're being retired, like we're getting new tires for the next season, and I like that. I like that because it means you still have a journey. You still have miles to drive and to get around. You just you're being rebranded and being retired so that you can do something new, something. And that's a stage of life that a lot of people have. They have so much knowledge, have a depth of experience, and they're asking themselves, what can I offer? What can I offer to the world? And we want to plug in with those people because they are wise, and sometimes we think they're just old. They're not old. They are so wise. They have a lot to offer. The seventh is obviously, anyone know? Death. Death is a transition. And I want to say death is unique because it can come anywhere along the lifespan. Often we want to hope that it will come at that later point, but it can come earlier, and we need to be aware of that. Then there's two other transitions that are not age-based, so they're not on that, what shall I call it? They're not a lifespan transition, but they are transitions in and of themselves, and that's parenting and marriage. And I say they're unique because not everybody gets married, and not everybody becomes a parent. Those are transitions, but they are so major and they're so life-changing because with parenting, you're bringing someone into your life, someone you didn't know. Sometimes it's some peoples, little peoples, prepared me for my period. I would have been like running to ER, like I'm bleeding, like what's going on? It would have been a crisis if I didn't know, right? And we can, when we know, when we're cognizant, when we're aware and we have knowledge, we can make a good transition. The other thing we can do through a transition to be successful rather than to be in crisis mode, the other thing we can do is connect with your creator. He's not surprised by transition. He knows transition is a good thing because you're coming from the known and you're being stretched to grow into the unknown. So the unknown scares us, but it doesn't need to scare us if we are connected with the God that made us. And he's able to help us to know what season about. What am I doing in the next season? The next thing you want to do is number 3 is community. You want to transition in community. This here is community. We're doing like girlfriends and women and people. You want to plug in with a community of people because then you can have conversations and you can normalize the transition. If you're doing parenting, don't do it alone. Find other, like what you do, you can find other parents, other moms to do life with, and then it normalizes what you're going through, and then you can grow together. If you're going into marriage, don't do it alone. Go into a premarital class. Find people that are doing this as well, and then you can have those conversations and support one another. If you're parenting teens, don't do it alone. Find another group of people that are parenting teens. Together, you can learn and grow. All I'm saying, community critical. The thing that you need to be able to do in order to thrive well is to find coaches. And I'm using the word coach to be an umbrella term for any manner of people, like a mentor. Find a woman that's gone ahead of you. Ask them questions. Connect with them. Let them speak into your life. Let them tell you things. You want to connect with a professional coach, if you can. They are equipped. They are professionally to help you through transition. You can connect with a counselor, a therapist. Depends on your need. Please connect. Don't do it alone. Find those people. So I said 4 things that can help through a transition. The first one is be aware. Just cognition. I like to use C's because they help me to remember things. I'm not so bright. I need to remember through C's. All right. Be cognizant. So cognition. Work with God, your creator. Be in community, and also, all right. And my midlife story is one that I know that if I hadn't had these things, it would have been a flop. I was going through a lot of physical changes, just hormonally. I didn't know then. I was just going through such hormonal changes. I was going to doctors. They were running tests and telling me, there's nothing wrong with you, Irene, but at this rate, you're going to be very sick. Because I had panic attacks. My body was just all over the place. It was pure panic attacks, and it took someone to tell me that is normal. Like, that is normal. What you're going to get to thrive. And you can thrive by finding the help that you need. My help, what helped me was those mentors and all, and the awareness and God. Those were my 3 big helps. And I want to say, I help coach people through transition, through midlife transition. That's a big one for me. And we have a program for that. We also help coach through quarter-life crisis. My husband and I do a program called 30 by 30, which is really 30 things I wish I had known by the time I was 30. So we share a lot of personal experience with that as well. And we also help transition people into marriage through premarital counseling into marriage. So that's me.
Beautifully and vulnerably talks about her journey online. I have a couple of questions for you, Tats. I know you have something prepared as well, so we'll get into that. But before you even begin, I want to start with the same question, which is, based off of the topic, the theme, but also your work. What is your why? What do you anchor yourself to? What kind of keeps you going?
Sorry. I know it's obviously cliche, but my kids is number 1, first and foremost. But I think outside of that, I have a job that is so wonderful because every day is different. So as much as I might go to bed thinking, how am I going to make it another day? The next day I might be traveling to the Mara, or, my job is super exciting, and that's something that really keeps me going, knowing that I don't have to do the same thing every single day. I think that's the kind of lifestyle I really wanted to build for myself. So yeah, that definitely keeps me going. Yeah.
Okay. Just 2 more questions for me. the next thing I was really curious to know from you is, so as a parent, as a mother, your job is, I guess, to guide and to lead and to teach these little ones. But what I've noticed, and also what I've heard from other parents, is that there's this thing that happens where it's like your kids hold up a mirror to you, and you're forced to look at yourself, and you're confronted with demons, with trauma, with what really are your values. And so I was curious to know, because I think ultimately our kids end up being our little teachers in some way. What is the lesson you've had the hardest time learning or unlearning in your motherhood journey?
I mean, I think one of the hardest things is just understanding that our kids are their own people, and that, you know, as much as you would hope for somebody to behave a certain way in, like, you know, like we're here today, my kids have very eclectic, very loud, vibrant, independent characters. And being able to be in a place and just letting that shine through without the worry of what other people are thinking. I think so, yeah, the biggest lesson that I've unlearned is to care about what other people think about my kids. Yeah.
So that completely, I think that's so beautiful. I don't know if I want to, can I ask one last question? Okay. I think going back to the fact that you so vulnerably share your ups and downs, I think that's the thing that I'm always like, I can't believe you've been so open about that. But also thank you for doing that, because that's something that we're all thinking or struggling with at some point or another. But I was curious, how has fame or popularity affected how you parent, if it has at all? Has it?
I don't think it really affects how I parent. If anything, I've been able to have more resources to be able to, you know, parent in the way that I like. I just think the only way that it's affected me is like when I'm out in public and people want to be very close to my kids. And the biggest way it's affected me, because, you know, there are some people who are like, oh, I saw you at Village Market and I wanted to say hi, but I saw you, so, you know, I gave you a space. I really, there are other people who are like, oh my God, Olive, Marley, hi, can we take your picture? Like, they're just kids. Like, you, as much as you see them online, I wish people would kind of have standing in person, whereby, you know, their kids, just give them their space and also don't be too close to them. I don't know, it's me. Okay. Space as women, and how we can overcome them to create a thriving life. I don't know if it's the same for you. Oh gosh. I don't know if it's the same for you, but personally, life can sometimes be frustrating. I often find myself questioning worth. I often find myself questioning my worth, feeling unseen and underappreciated due to the challenges life throws. Sorry. Hello? Oh, yeah. Raising 3 kids on my own is no easy task, and it can be overwhelming to juggle all the roles I play. However, despite the difficulties, I found the strength to think of others and create a community that empowers women. So how do I find the strength to keep going? What is it about me that causes me to push forward? These are questions I've asked myself countless times. I believe that deep within each of us lies a well of resilience and determination. It's this inner strength that allows us to rise above our circumstances and continue to move forward. Tonight, I want to share with you the tools I use to help me thrive, even in the face of adversity. Everything I do it for them. On the hard days when I want to give up, I remind myself of the incredible responsibility I have as a mother. My children are my motivation to keep pushing forward, even when it feels impossible. I don't know why, but I always almost cry when I'm talking about my kids. Just please, like, I don't know what it is. Okay, being a single mom has been hands down the hardest experience of my life. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's not even sad. It's not even sad. All right, people often ask me how I do it all, and to be honest, I have no idea. There are days when I find myself unable to cope with my circumstances and I shut myself away from the world, unable to get work done or be a decent mother. It can be... Sorry. Oh, thank you. I rehearsed this twice before here and I didn't shed a tear. Like, all right. It can be overwhelming and exhausting, especially when all my kids are sick and I'm feeling sick myself. It's during these times that I feel so angry that their dad isn't around to help in any way. There are moments when I feel sorry for myself, but one thing I've learned is that it's okay to feel what I'm feeling. My feelings are valid. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Maybe I should go next. And in fact, I take comfort in knowing that they're universal. However, I also have discovered ways to overcome these sad days. One of the most important things I've learned is to turn to my village. Surrounding myself with supportive friends and family members who understand my struggles has been a lifeline. They offer a listening ear, practical help, and emotional support when I need it most. Another crucial aspect is taking time to prioritize myself. As a single mom, it's easy to put everyone else's needs before my own, but I've realized that I can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of myself, whether it's through self-care activities, hobbies, or simply taking a break, allows me to recharge and be a better mother to my children. Talking to people who can support me has also been instrumental in my journey, whether it's joining a single mom support group, seeking advice from other single moms who've been through similar experiences, or even talking to a therapist or parent coach. Having someone to share my thoughts and concerns with has made a significant difference. In conclusion, being a single mom is undeniably challenging, but it's important to acknowledge and validate our feelings. We don't have to go through it alone. By building a support system, prioritizing self-care, and seeking guidance from others, we can navigate the ups and downs of single motherhood with strength and resilience, or of motherhood. One key point, having said all of this, I wanted to share that this unwavering determination can often lead to burnout. As women, we tend to put immense pressure on ourselves to be everything to everyone. We juggle multiple roles and responsibilities, often neglecting our own well-being in the process. It's crucial to recognize the signs of burnout and take steps to prevent it. One key point to avoid burnout is to prioritize self-care. It's not selfish to take time for yourself. In fact, it is essential for your overall well-being. Make sure to carve moments in your day for activities that bring you joy and recharge your energy. One piece of advice I got from a friend was, it's not necessarily about finding time to rest, but it's about finding time to do something that you absolutely love. Another important aspect of preventing burnout is setting boundaries. Learn to say no when you feel overwhelmed or stretched too thin. It's okay to prioritize your own needs and delegate tasks when necessary. Surround yourself with a support system that understands and respects your boundaries, allowing you to find balance in your life. Secondly, that was a long firstly, this is very short. Secondly, I believe in the power of vulnerability. Society often tells us to hide our struggles and put on a brave face, but I've found that sharing openly about my challenges has been incredibly liberating. By being honest and transparent, I've been able to connect with others who are going through similar experiences. It's through this connection that we find strength and support. Thirdly, I tap into my passion for empowering women, specifically mothers. When we focus on something greater than ourselves, it becomes easier to find the motivation to keep going. By creating a community that uplifts and supports one another, we can create a space where women can thrive and grow together. It's through this sense of purpose that I find the strength to persevere. Lastly, remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Reach out to friends, family, or support groups when you need assistance. Building a strong support network can provide you with the necessary resources and emotional support to navigate the challenges of motherhood and life in general. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you tonight. I hope that my journey has inspired you to embrace your own struggles, find strength in your children, and take steps to prevent burnout. Let's come together and create a community where every woman feels seen, appreciated, and empowered.
Like, I don't even know why I'm crying. It's not even sad, but I think it is hard. It's so hard. And I think what you've done is show the world, show the people who are following you, and I think that's a lot of us in this room, just like the ups and the downs. I don't think it's talked about enough, and I think that often there's a sense of shame around it, as if it's so convoluted. But thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable even in this moment. That's so beautiful. Mine. I have so many more questions, but we're gonna jump into Kambua because I know we also have a time limit and we want to jump into dinner as well. So Kambua, same question as I've asked Irene and Tats. What is the most meaningful part about your work and the theme that you'll talk to us about today, which is, just to remind everyone, which is mindset, how it affects us inside and out.
Okay, hi everybody. Hi. First of all, you look so lovely tonight. Has somebody told you you look beautiful? No, turn to the lady next to you. Tell her, you're so beautiful. Compliment her hair, her makeup, her earrings. My name is Kambua, and the most meaningful thing about what I do, about my life, is awakening hope in other people. Because I know the number of times that I have needed hope reawakened in me. And I like that from when Coach Roseanne started talking and all the way to everybody who's spoken, Tatiana, Irene, there's community that keeps coming up. That God has used community, people, to awaken hope in me. So the most meaningful thing for me, as long as I have breath, is to do the same, is to reawaken hope in other people.
Jeez, I mean, the gems. I love it. And I think what I've also learned and noticed and experienced in my own life is that it's a cycle almost. It's not like you awaken hope and you're like, oh, thank God, fixed for life. It's like things kind of keep coming up and you're forced to confront certain demons or trauma, and you have to kind of go back to the practices. Do you want to? So everyone here has a kind of different setup, speech and a talk. I'll ask each person if there's like notes and things that you want to get into. But again, I still have my questions. So when I think of mindset, one of the things that comes up is self-talk and how critical we can be. I think even in Roseanne's talk, when you were talking about the rejection, it was like, what am I doing wrong? Rather than it was just a numbers game. But it's almost like we often go back to talk like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get it right? How many times does this have to happen for me to? We go back to such a like that programming, and I was just wondering, how would you describe your experience of self-forgiveness and self-love?
So I am still on the journey. I'm still on the journey. And I remember when I met Coach Roseanne early this year. Was it early this year? It feels like it's been much longer. She found me at a place where I was so hard on myself. So hard on myself. And I don't know why the biggest blessing in my life also became my source of the greatest criticism, self-criticism. So motherhood is something I had wanted for so long. But when I became a mother, I became so hard on myself. And I became so hard on myself even when things happened that were beyond my control. Okay, I lost a child and I blamed myself. And went through a journey of being unable to have children, and I blamed myself. And so when we met, I had just had my daughter who turned a year old last week. Thank you. I was just dealing with so much in my mind and not taking into account how much I had overcome. I did not credit myself enough for being here, for being alive, for not having lost my mind. I did not credit myself enough for having carried children through very difficult pregnancies, and having two with me, having one with the Lord. I never stopped and said, wow, Kambua, you have done a lot. It was always, oh my gosh, you need to do more. You need to, and that voice, I realized has been magnified by the biggest blessing in my life. So I have been on a journey to undo some of those things, and I will share a little bit about being anchored in seasons of life. And one of the things that I have been working on over the last few months is operating from a place of advantage, because Coach Roseanne, we said, I remember this one session we had, and we've had some really difficult sessions. where I realized that because of everything that has happened over the last decade in my life, a part of me became a victim. And I accepted that narrative over myself. And it's so difficult to operate from a place of disadvantage. But when you reposition yourself and see what your power is and see how the things that have happened to you can now work for you, then you find yourself at a place of advantage. So that's the journey I have been on. Yeah.
Juan, thank you for sharing that. Just leading off of what you've just said, what are some actual practical things that have helped shift your mind frame from moving from or making decisions and informed decisions from a place of disadvantage rather than advantage? What are some of those steps?
Can I dive into
Yeah. Oh, you can even dive into
mixed
yes. Oh, sweet.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I'll just dive into what I had prepared to share with you tonight. One of the first thing that for me was very practical is strongly tied to my faith, and that is I had to stop tolerating the plan of God and accept it. So, because we find ourselves in seasons and we just want to, you're just tolerating and you're angry and you're bitter and you're resentful. But when you accept it, when you rest in it, you begin to thrive in that season. So when I was about 19 years old, I found myself in Canada for school. It's the first time I ever experienced different seasons because, in Kenya we have, it's hot, it's raining, like there's not much seasons, right? So it was winter time when I landed and I thought, oh my gosh, this is how snow looks. Okay, it was so beautiful. But it wasn't so beautiful when I fell on ice, okay, on black ice. But there were really beautiful things about the winter time. And then the spring came and I started to see life come back. And then summertime came and everybody was out and having a great time. And then the fall is my favorite season. It's so beautiful. The weather is just right. And then we get right back into the winter. And I thought about how life is exactly like that one season gives way to another season. And it's inevitable that right now I could be in my winter and it might feel like it's forever, but it's going to give way to the next season, which is spring. But when we're in those seasons of our lives, we feel like it's taking forever. I'm never gonna get out of this place. I will never have children. I will never get a job. I will never, and that is part of us tolerating a plan other than trusting that God, he says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans for good, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. So I had to get to a place where, this is the other thing, I trust the heart of God towards me. That God is not a sadist, he's not in heaven like, oh my gosh, let's see how much she can suffer. His plans for me are good. Even when it doesn't feel like it, I know his heart for me is good. I learned to operate from a place of advantage. I'm learning. And here's the thing. I think it's human nature to want to go back to old habits. And what I'm learning is the more I do something in the new way, the more I'm able to override my old habits, right? Because if I am coming from a place where my questions were, why me? So I have an almost 4-year-old and a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old in heaven. But my babies are small, right? My age mates have babies in high school, going to the university, and I felt left behind. I was like, God, thank you so much for your blessings. But as people are discussing, oh, my daughter is applying to the US, I'm like, what diapers are in the market? And it just feels like you've been left behind. And I realized that it's so easy for us to fail to see the blessing of where we are, and that our timings in life are so different. Somebody in this room could get married at 50, and that was the right time. Not you, Kagiri. We want love to find you quickly. But you know what I mean? It could be 50, it could be 30, it could be 25. It's also different for all of us. So knowing again that the plans that God has for us, for each and every one of us, are good, and his timing is perfect, and he makes no mistakes. So I'm not at a place of disadvantage. I'm enjoying motherhood. It's hard, but it's beautiful. I love. Today my son made me so upset in the morning. He erased everything on my phone. Everything. Like my phone looked new. He was like, "Mama, look what I've done." And I really had to remind myself that he's a blessing. And I went on my stories. I'm like, guys, I'm looking for a techie, and all the techies did not know what to do with my phone. And I just said, all those memories gone just like that because of a 4-year-old who doesn't pay bills. But praise the Lord, because my husband fixed it about an hour before I came here, and I was like, but all this to say that it's difficult, but it's beautiful, and it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have no doubt. I am happy changing diapers. I'm happy blending food. I am happy, okay? Because I know another season is going to come. So I want to be fully present in this one. Amen? Have I turned you into a church? I'm so sorry. Finally, what we were saying is getting a community. And I'm so happy that I looked around and I saw one of my sisters in the congregation. Hi, Naserian. She's one of the baddest makeup artists in Nairobi, by the way. I am plugging my sister, but she's good. Can you see her face? Yeah, she beats it proper. I have learned to build a community of people I can be honest with, vulnerable with, people who will not judge me, but also people who will not allow me to just sit in my darkness, for lack of a better word. People who will challenge me, people who will say, okay, let's cry together, but now we've cried enough, let's open the curtains and let's move forward. So I have a community that I love, and that's what I want to leave you with as well, is to get a community of people who you can be honest with, you can be vulnerable with, people who are not in awe of who you are, is what I say, because my life is fairly public, right? But when I go home, my mom is part of my community. I value her opinion a lot and her voice in my life. My mom, when I walk into our house, she will never say, oh, Kambua has come, give her a cup of tea. My mom will be like, okay, go make me a cup of tea. You know what I mean? Like she keeps me grounded. She keeps me, she doesn't downplay my gifts and my abilities. She celebrates them, but she keeps me grounded. And that's what my community does. It keeps me grounded. So those are some of the gems I would share with you in your seasons of life, that you can stay anchored regardless of what season you're in. Yeah.
Starting with the same question, what is the thing that keeps you going? What do you what do you go back to? What do you hold on to when it comes to your work?
Good evening, ladies. Good evening. So the one thing that always awakens me and keeps me going is God. So every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm a chosen generation. I'm a royal priesthood, so I'm royalty. So because I'm royalty and I belong to a father who owns everything, I have to wake up and make it work. Yes.
I'm going to start again with the questions, Jemimah, before you jump into your topic. Her topic, just to remind everyone, was faith as an unwavering anchor, navigating life's struggles with resilience and hope. Resilience, that's another word that keeps coming up. So one, on a personal, push, I'm going to try and hold them. On a personal note, I'm kind of going through a season similar to what you said, which is, learning not to tolerate, but to accept. Is that how you framed it? I was talking to Roseanne earlier this week, and we were diving into it. And what this season is teaching me, which is kind of what you were saying, is that I need to learn to surrender, which is a bit difficult for someone who likes to have structure. Because I'm like, yeah, I get it, surrender. But like, how many minutes are we talking about before like we get back to regular programming, and like, or months? Give me a time frame. Give me an answer. Why? How many times is this going to happen? I'm looking for that. But I also understand that I'm not owed that, right? And there's so many moments in life where we don't get to have answers. Someone doesn't get to tell you, oh, this is why you experienced loss, or this is why. It's not clear, and you have to surrender. It's not a pleasurable lesson, but I'm kind of working my way through it. And my question to you was, what does it mean to you to surrender? And what does that look like? How do you honor that?
Me also, it didn't come easy. I learned through the hard way. So when I got married, I went through a phase that was very hard.
Go for it, go for it. Right here. Yes. Right here for all of you.
So, a lot was expected of me, and I think coming from a very small family, I went into a very large family. And so learning to adjust to fit myself into everyone's expectation was really, really hard. And I found myself lost in everything. I was lost in relationships. I was lost at work. I was lost in my faith. I was just in every other person's life, but I didn't have a life of my own. And so I had to go back and seek God. And it's at that point that I asked him, so who am I? Who am I to you? And why am I on earth? And why have you brought me into this situation? And right there, I found an answer, and I found my purpose. And I discovered myself, and I found who I was again, and I started living life again. So I had to learn to surrender to God so that he could actually show me the reason why he had put me in this kind of a situation. And from there on, I've been learning, and it's been beautiful, and that's why I'm here today. Yeah.
I think kind of leading off of that, you more and more you hear people talking about their spiritual journey as being personal, or their relationship with God as being personal. And I say that because I think, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but it felt like growing up there was only one way to have a relationship with God, and one way to pray, and one way to serve, and one way. But more and more you hear people kind of explaining, well, my relationship with God looks like this. This is what prayer looks like to me. And that could be sitting still, focusing on breath work, meditating. And that could be on your knees in church praying. And that too. Also that one. And I was curious, how has your relationship, Jemimah, with God, or with a higher power, with the universe, with what, and I guess this would be something for everyone else to think about too, but how's your relationship with God evolved through the different seasons?
So for me, God, as you're saying, God has taken different shapes in different seasons. So at that particular time when I was trying to find myself, he was my anchor, and he was my definer, because he redefined me and gave me a new identity and a purpose for life. And then moving on, I had to learn how to live in this new form and find my confidence, find my self-worth. And so he became my teacher, and I would go back and seek him. And I learned to listen as well. I learned to listen to that still small voice and hear what he has to say about me, and how he wants me to take the form of whatever environment that I found myself in. And I also learned to trust in the process, that he was taking me from one phase to the next. It was not going to be smooth and it was not going to be always flowery and beautiful, but I had to learn to trust him. And what you said, surrender and then trust, and take it a day at a time, knowing that he will never leave me nor forsake me, and that he has a good plan for me, as Kambua says. That's what the Word of God says and tells us. Yeah.
When you said the thing about like God has had different faces, it reminded me of something my daughter said the other day, and she was like, "Mama, do you know what? God is not a man, and God is not a woman. God isn't even a big circle with eyes all around it." And I was like, "Big circle with eyes all around it? Where did that come from?" And she was like, "God is a spirit," and it was like, God is inside me, and that's my, and bless my mom for like these are the lessons that she's sharing. But when you said that, I was like, yeah, Naila, that's my daughter's name. For a second, she was like, "It God," and I asked her to draw it just so I can understand. You thought God was a big circle with eyes all around it. It's a bit scary looking, but you know, God is different for everyone. So last question before you jump into your talk. And I think I just wanted to offer something different in case there's people whose spiritual practices are different. Maybe your experience of God is different as well. But what I do know, what I've experienced, is that gratitude is a really powerful practice. I mean, even Roseanne, you kind of mentioned that was the fourth step, right? Gratitude. And to anchor yourself, to remind yourself like the things that you kind of want to take as like, thank you, God, for this. Thank you, universe, for this. Or thank you for this. What are some defining advantages you associate with your experience of practicing gratitude? Yeah.
So for me, I've learned that I have to be grateful for everything. And even me being here sharing this story, I'm really grateful because I know it's going to leave very positive impacts in someone's life. And so gratitude has taught me to embrace everyone, and everybody's story is different. And that I am not at a position where I can judge any person, but I can only pray for them and try to encourage them. Because it's only when you remain grateful to where God has brought you that you can be able to see the pain in someone's life and want to take that away. When we don't take gratitude as a form of practice in our lives, then we become very selfish human beings because we become entitled and we think that everything that we have should be given to us or should belong to us. And it's not like that. I believe that we are all here. We are very blessed because not every Kenyan woman can sit in this room and afford to pay or have someone who can pay to come here and listen and enjoy and celebrate and thrive with one another. So that's something also we need to be grateful about, because having this opportunity, coming here, sitting, listening, learning, listening to Kambua, Irene, and Pat, and everyone else is a learning experience that then gives us a heart of gratitude to just be here and listen to one another and build one another and go home feeling different because you had someone's story that resonated with yours without feeling judged. So I give thanks for everything. And it's not easy, but I try to. Yeah, I try not to feel entitled. Oh, okay. Yeah. No. Did you have No. Yeah.
And just like that, baby Nova has walked into the building. The MVP. Now all eyes are going to be on our little baby, our little munchkin, saying hello. What a cutie. I see why people would be like, that about judgment can be especially difficult. Sometimes you want to judge someone just a little bit and just be like, but when you were writing that tweet, didn't you think? Don't you have, are any of the brain cells working, or are they on, I don't know what's happening there. Sometimes it can be so difficult not to pass judgment. Sometimes you don't even recognize that it's happening because some of this is just programming. It's how you've kind of grown up and expected people to react the same way, to respond the same way. That can be very difficult. But one of my favorite, I don't know what you'd call him, Eckhart Tolle, who's like a spiritual teacher, he says one of the ways to achieve a semblance of peace or a good life is by practicing 3 things. And he says non-attachment, which is another difficult thing because we get attached to our expectations. We want this to kind of go a certain way, our people in our lives, certain situations. So non-attachment, non-resistance as well, which can also be very difficult when there's things changing and you're like, this isn't comfortable. And the last one is non-judgment. And I think with the judgment thing, it just, how do you not only practice non-judgment, but then offer gratitude, and especially when someone is perhaps crossing a boundary or violating your space, your spirit, your being in one way or another? I mean, and we all have moments, things that kind of trigger us in one way or another, but how do you then practice non-judgment in those moments where you have something you want to say to someone?
As you've said, it's not very easy because everyone has a label that they want to place on you and define you as they find fit and, whatever that makes them happy. But for me, it has come to knowing my self-worth and just being confident in who I am and in what God says I am. So I do not, it's not like it doesn't hurt. It hurts me a lot because I'm a human being. I have emotions. And I'll go and ask, I'll have questions and I'll be like, why God? Is this what they see of me? Is this what they think of me? Is this who I portray myself to be? But I've learned to go into the quietness of it all and find my peace in God and say, you have said that, I'm a royal priesthood, I'm a chosen generation, I'm a special person to you, and this is what I am. So it doesn't matter what the world defines me, just give me the strength to portray who you have made me to be and what you've meant me to be and what you want me, what is my purpose to me to leave behind. That even when I'm gone, people will sit back and say, you know what, God really did exist in this woman. And I'm always reminded of the story of Naomi in the Bible and Ruth. And so Naomi means Mara, bitterness. I mean, she had a very bitter experience moving from her homeland, relocating to a foreign land with her sons. They got married to foreigners. She had to adjust to that. She was given different labels because their money, they finished all that they had, and she lost everything that she valued, her husband and her children. And time came that she needed to go back home and reconnect with her strength because her strength was in God, and she was in a foreign land that didn't believe in the God that she believed in. And she felt lost. And on the way again, one of her daughters-in-law left her. So she was left with Ruth. But she didn't give up. She went back home. She found herself again. God gave her a new name. Instead of bitterness, she became Naomi. God gave her another son in the husband that married Ruth. And so at the end of it all, there was redefining. There was a new purpose because she became a grandmother. And she actually played a role in finding a husband for Ruth. So in all of these challenges that she went through, her end goal was to be a destiny helper for Ruth, not even for her husband or for her son. So, our lives can take different forms and shapes that we don't understand, but the end goal is what God has intended for us. It's not always about us, and it's what Kambua said, learning not to resist or to tangle with God, but sitting and accepting what He has created and meant for you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to also I just looked at the time and I realized that I've got to be really quick now. So going to move on to Patricia. Pat, Pat is okay. That's true. Okay, Pat. So we're going to stick to Pat. Okay. Pat, when was we met? Like how many years ago now? 6? Did I have a child? A long time. But Pat, okay. So maybe 5 years ago. I think we met, Pat and I met like 5 years ago, and I think met over and over again multiple times at like different events like this. I always find what you have to say so inspiring. And I was even, you came up with, in our session with, I think with Roseanne as well, just talking about like your business acumen. What is the most meaningful part of your work?
First of all, thank you very much for having me here, Roseanne. I'm just overwhelmed at, everything that's happened, moving forward to this moment of Thriving Woman. So thank you very much. The question, I have the answer, I can't remember the question. But I I know the thing that, for me, the thing that maybe put me on this journey, because I think I'm very introverted and I'm definitely not the kind of person who wants to stand out in a crowd, to speak in front of people. I actually hate speaking in front of people. But it's the moment when you think, and maybe it's the crisis. Now, when I go and meet my maker, why was I here at the end of the day? Was it just to be a mother to my children and a good wife? And somehow that answer was not adequate for me. And that is really what put me on this journey in the year 2000 and maybe 16, no, 15, because the crisis was having my child. But yes, yeah, I think for me it's just that when I meet my maker and he asks me, Pat, you were given your talents, what did you do with them? That's the thing that really spurs me forward.
Okay, I'm just going to ask one question and then you can dive into, oh, you don't have, I can just ask the question. I can ask, okay, so I'll make the questions, I'll ask a couple of questions before we move to Dr. Patricia. So in business, no, not even in business, in life, one of the things that you keep hearing is like, don't give up, don't quit, just like keep hustling. Even when we're talking about the seasons, it's like, just know like it's not here forever, just like, but don't give up, don't give up. But sometimes giving up is the right thing to do, or letting go is the right thing to do. And I'm just curious, when do you know, especially in business and in entrepreneurship, when do you know when to let go and when to keep fighting? And I ask this also because with entrepreneurship, there's a level of like, you've got to be a level of crazy. Like there's a level of stubbornness, right? Because you do things and you're like, why is she still going at it? Can't you, everything is like, all the answers are like, stop, stop, stop. And then next thing you know, it's like they've hit the biggest milestone of their careers because they didn't give up. But I've always been curious, how does one know when to step back and when to keep pushing on?
Yeah, that's a good one. How many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Okay, just want to know who I'm speaking to. All right. The path to entrepreneurship is not a linear path. I think that's the first thing we have to agree. We're constantly iterating and constantly trying something. It changes. It doesn't look like what it was supposed to be. I think the thing that it's in this new season, because I've been in business 23 years, and this new season of the startup season of you have to go get this idea, then you go and pitch it, then you get money, and then you keep going at it, is for me a bit of a foreign thing, because I believe that you have to have a proof of concept. You have to have a basic product or service, and then people will pay you for that product and service, and they will come back a second time and a third time. And for me, that's what real entrepreneurship is. Now, the struggle is when you have a paper business and you are in love with that idea, and then you keep pitching it and there's nobody buying. Maybe it's not business, yeah. Maybe. You can console yourself and you can say, I'm not talking to the right audience, I'm not talking. But we're assuming, we're making an assumption as an entrepreneur, you will keep speaking about this product that you have or this service that you have. And then eventually somebody's going to come to you and say they're willing to pay you hard money for the value that you're offering. And for me, that is what true entrepreneurship is. Now, the issue about giving up, it's not about, I don't think I would say giving up. For me, what I have seen through life is through a series of failures, you will eventually get the thing that works. And I think you should be okay with failing, which is, it's easy to say that, but in a society that judges us so much, even for things that are beyond our control, you can see how you hold on to something because of fear of being called a failure, right? But if you look at it as part of the process of iterating to get to that fantastic product at the end of the journey, then you should want to fail fast, quickly. I mean, you should be looking forward to, okay, what's my learning here? What did I learn? And how can I then improve on it? In my experience, especially now with Kayana, which is where I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, one of the saddest thing I see is a woman just stuck with this thing and I'm going with it, and it's a beautiful product or it's a beautiful service, no buyers, nothing, spending money on it. It's heartbreaking, really, to see that happen. And I think, and usually it's just tweaking something or just letting go of something. And sometimes even the solution is in your customer. So the customer can even tell you, well, maybe it's too much of this. Maybe if you just reduce this, but you're like, man, me, I know this. I read it for a year. I've been writing this. There's no way you know more than me. All you've just tasted, and then you're now giving me your opinion. So I think that's where the struggle comes from. And if we now pedal back a little bit, it's now talking about ourselves and as women, and knowing yourself and understanding who you are. An exercise that sometimes I feel women think is a luxury. But that going back and introspecting on who you are, removing all the expectations of your family, of your kids, everybody, and just sit down in that dark corner as Sharon or as Patricia, and writing down really from this life, what do I want, yeah? And how am I going to get it? And why should it matter? So much so, what somebody else says of me, so much so that this thing is now becoming my exam of life, you know, and thinking through that process. I think that's where the real journey in terms of thriving as an entrepreneur, being a thriving woman as an entrepreneur really begins to come from.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question. So you'll often hear people I don't know if this is true, you'll tell me if it is or not, but you'll often hear people refer to their businesses as their babies, and it forms a deep sense of their identity. It happens a lot even with creators, and their art becomes them, and they are their art. And so criticism can sometimes be like, but what do you know about whatever this is? How important is it to create an identity within your business and become it becomes you, versus maybe creating some distance? Is it, have you found in your experience that the more you identify as this product or as this service, the more successful you are? Or is it important to create distance between you and whatever it is that you're selling?
I think if you look at the story of entrepreneurs who have been extremely successful and gone before us, it always starts from something from within, yeah? So I think when a business is small or when it's really starting, it'll always be an extension of yourself, yeah? I think when I think of my business being a child, I never think of it being in terms of something I've given birth to, but it's more of the amount of time I have to spend on this part of my life in order for it to grow and to extend to outlive me. And for me, that's what I see in terms of the child. But in terms of your business being an extension of me, and I want to use one of my business. So I have a business that I started 23 years ago that gave birth to another one that I started 12 years ago. And the one that I started 12 years ago is by far more successful than the first one. And I do believe it's because I was able to distance myself from it. I don't look at it, well, the first one was, this is my baby, it's my first business. I could see the cracks in this new one. I could see this is where the gaps are. When a client would come with feedback, and in Kenya, feedback for some reason is criticism. I don't know. We have to examine ourselves. Anyway, when they would come back with feedback, it would not be about me. It's not that they're not criticizing Patricia. It was everything they were giving back to me was something that I could go and put into that business to make it better. And I know that's why it succeeded in terms of turnover. The first one, which was now my real baby, of you're not telling me anything, this is my work, I'm the one who was the designer, I'm the one who was going to pitch the job. I was doing, but with this second one, it wasn't at all like that. So I think, for me, that's what I think. But even more important in terms of a big problem where women get stuck with our micro businesses, me included, me, Patricia included, get stuck with my business being micro, is really around the space where I can only do things my way, And I think that's now the thing that kills women-owned businesses. It's not the same. I have to mix it myself. I have to pack it myself. Who said? Believe me, the person who's going to eat it has no idea what you spend sleepless night mixing that thing. At the end of the day, as long as it's good and it serves them and it grows them, that's what they're looking for at the end of that journey. So the sooner we get out of ourselves saying that, teach other people your recipes. Teach them how to, how you do you. Teach them how you speak in front of people. Teach them how you organize your courses or your work, etc. they will never be you. They will never, until you put your flavor into that thing, that's when it's you. So don't be holding on to this thing. I mean, I could have a whole seminar on abundance about that. Stop holding on to things like, if I train somebody else, they'll run away with it. Lies. No, instead focus on putting systems, focus on writing things down. In the Bible, we've been told, Malachi, write your vision, make it clear. So that even if they tarry, for sure, even in your business, that's what you need to do. Let people see clearly. Somebody comes into the business, it's like for dummies. They get in, they know how you do it. When you wake up, when you enter your business, where do you put your handbag? Show them, put your handbag here, I sit here, I do show them every single step until they can do it exactly like you, but they're not you. Imagine that's the beginning of how businesses grow and go beyond borders, beyond, and anybody who's worked for multinationals knows that these are the processes they put. It's only that now it becomes broken down into sectors for businesses to grow. Yeah.
Thank you. Man, I feel like for some business gets me going. But that's also because like women making money gets me going. I love seeing women making money. All right, thank you so much, Pat. Dr. Patricia, last but definitely not least, your topic was redefining leadership, overcoming external challenges, and embracing resilience. Did you have something prepared? Okay, kind of. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the the main question, which is what is the most meaningful part about your work, and then you can just dive into what you prepared.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Coach Roseanne. A leader for a time such as this. And then when I saw the panelists, I was like, you really need me? I want to just say, each of you, it's just that I couldn't write notes furiously. Tonight, I have to just decompress the wisdom across and the beauty that I think comes from overcoming. So when you ask that question, and our MC was talking about engage, which was by far, I actually thought that was the hardest thing I'm going to do this year, but it's beginning to prove to not be. And I talked about being so ready to have children and then losing them as we went along. So we have 3 children in heaven and 2 that we're bringing up. And I think that intricate dance with life and death taught me that we can't really take things for granted. For a long time, I did work that I didn't feel was very meaningful, and I felt invisible, I felt lost, and then now you add on this other situation, which I thought was easy. But I had friends who I think they just touch hands and they're pregnant, and soon they have children. I mean, you get married with a Rika, isn't it? In fact, some of them for a while couldn't see me because they were like, it's like we're rubbing salt into a wound. And so because of that, looking back now, that's the point at which I realized that life is such a gift. This idea that it should just come. So if that's the case with children that would love to have with my husband, then how about the life that I have? What if I can just look at it from the perspective of it being a gift? And because it was a very hard time, then my calling became much clearer. That since I was struggling to break through that time, and once I got through that breaking through, then I realized so many people were struggling with breaking through spaces, and hence the calling became very clear. So really it was a point of wounds showing me the way.
Oh, you can just jump into that.
So this idea of leadership and resilience, I don't know about you, I don't know how many weeks you think your life has. So I've been really thinking about how long is life, very connected to this. And I've been doing a bit of research. And can you imagine it's 4,000 weeks? And if you're 40, that's assuming an 80-year life. I would tell your friend how many weeks you have remaining. So for those of us who are that group of midlife opportunity, not crisis, yeah? Opportunity, probably 2,000 weeks, yeah? Now, when you break down life into weeks, In fact, I'm even feeling goosebumps. I've been praying and thinking about this. It's the first time I'm speaking about it. And it gets me to think about how we sometimes waste weeks. How was this week? Were you wallowing in self-pity? I mean, I was a little bit. Were you struggling with something that you're trying to achieve, to get through? And then somehow it's like that week you are in a trance. And so when I've started thinking that was 1 week, yeah. If there were 2,000 weeks, that's 199. Huh? And then 1998. The idea here is not to make you depressed. No, that's not the intention. The intention is for us to truly rise, thrive, and to lead ourselves. So when I thought about the topic around leading, being resilient, I thought about a bridge, yeah? And how do we bridge from 1 week to the next? And I remember when you were coaching me, you bridged me from one season to the next. And sometimes we don't even realize that you're being a ditch, not a bridge. And I think the hardest part is being a ditch to yourself, frankly. It's bad enough to be a ditch to someone else, but to be a ditch to yourself, I think is... And I think as women, because we are giving, helping, leading, sometimes you don't realize that leading yourself is by far the most powerful thing you can do, I can do. And that means a couple of things. I just want to share the acronym, very much like you have to use acronyms to remember some things, of don't be a bridge, don't be a ditch, be a bridge. So what do I mean? If we take the letter B, I think it starts with our beliefs. And God has planted in us a specific assignment for this season and for all our lives. But beyond the belief of God, which is so critical, is also the belief of what is happening. Yeah? So how do you translate things that are happening in your life? I have found over the years, it appears to me that the same thing could be happening, but meaning I attach to it makes the whole difference. So what belief do you have right now about your X number of weeks? Is it, oh my gosh, please God, if you can help me get 4,000. But since I'm not sure whether they're 4,000, can I use this one starting tomorrow or starting today? So much more bravely. So belief leads to being brave. And I think to be brave, to recognize when to let go. I loved what you said about non-attachment, non-resistance, and non-judgment. And I especially love the not tolerating. Because the minute you're brave in a small thing, I think sometimes we're thinking being brave is climbing Mount Kenya, walking across a bridge like I did on 31st December. I was cheated that the bridge was from here to there. It was a kilometer. But the point is, it's in the small things. Being brave to tell someone, to even tell yourself, I think I'm done with this behavior. I think I'm done with talking down at myself. Beliefs. So beliefs. Believe that you can be brave. Yeah, that B. R is rituals. When Coach Roseanne was talking earlier, and I think it's one of the things you taught us in the Hey Sugar, and I continue to practice it. Connect what you're doing to something you're already doing. You see, you talked about brushing teeth, and I'm like, we wake up and we brush our teeth and we don't think about it. I hope. Isn't it? First that, I hope that we brush and then we don't think about it, right? Whichever hope you want to take. But it's the ritualizing, the ritualizing. And I remember you teaching us about the squats. So link them to every time you go to the bathroom. I had never thought of that. You don't have to do the push-ups on the floor. Of course, that's good. But you can do the ones on the wall also every time you go to. So ritualize some of these habits. So connect, because we don't have time first. But also, if we can bundle things together, if you look at this centerpiece, just look at it. It's bundled together, and that's where the beauty comes. So ritualize. And then I interrogate my bias. What am I biased about? You know, even just walking into a room, I feel a bit of an ambivert in between introvert and extrovert. And I was like, sorry. Gonna meet new people, I'm going to, you know. But maybe there's someone who didn't even show up because they're like, I can't handle. You see? So interrogate the biases that are preventing you from rising and thriving, especially if they are based on things people have told us about ourselves, things people have said that we have now determined to be gospel truth. How many gospels do we have, by the way? See, we have 4. So we cannot be writing a new gospel. Yeah, and I think that's the challenge. Sometimes we start to hold on to opinions and biases as if they're gospel truth. So maybe we can check that. B-R-I-D. Discern. I think there we really need the community. Because I may be seeing this issue is just like this. We're trying to take our conference to South Africa, and it's like another PhD, frankly. And one of the things I have learned in this couple of months is to seek counsel. And it's amazing how many people are willing to help us, contrary to what you might believe. Do you see how biases come in? So I remember calling a lady who's very senior in SA. We'd worked with her, and I told her, I want to seek your counsel. By the way, this thing of be my mentor, I don't know, stop it. Seek counsel, seek guidance, seek an insight. Chances are you can have a 10-minute conversation that could change the trajectory of your life. So discernment has to do with realizing I don't know it, no matter what we have achieved, and choosing to be back to kindergarten, no matter how high we have risen. So discern, but don't just discern, decide, and then do. Because we can be busy collecting lots of advice. I love reading. The books sometimes are on the bedside. I'm hoping by osmosis they'll come through. They won't. I've got to do it. Yeah, I've got to read, discern, decide, and do. And then G, grow. I love that we're here to thrive and to realize that painful times, I think, as you said, that dance between failure and success. And the sun is shining, so let me get up. So grow. And I think sometimes we look at growth, and you taught us that growth is not only the kgs dropping off, the inches dropping off, it is even the behaviors you are stopping to do, the unlearning. And I find that I think is a lot more powerful than even the learning, because we only have X number of weeks, X number of hours, and the bandwidth to do a lot means we have to unbundle also, declutter, and learn so as to then learn. So that's G. And then the last one is elevate. Just elevate. Elevate your conversation. That friend comes and says, why is this so painful? Let's unpack it, because you're always bringing up this. Maybe it's hurt you so much. How can I help you transcend from this? And elevating is ourselves, elevating others. And I think for me, to really respond to this question, I've been reflecting a lot on, it's 4,000 weeks. It's probably 2,000 and something. 3,000. My friend is turning 60-something in a couple of weeks. She's probably at 1.5. But I love the way she lives her life. And I think having the counsel of older women and younger women, as the Bible told us, is incredible. You know, I was listening to you, Sharon, and I just asked myself, quarter life crisis, I hope it was last week. Because, just say thanks, you know? But precisely wherever we are, sometimes, you know, we think there's still so much we need to do. I don't seem to be even moving forward. But right there where you are is where you're meant to be. So be a bridge, not a ditch.
Geez, the gems being dropped tonight. I hope you guys have been writing them down, getting your notes down. All right, I'm going to pass this on over to Carrie. Sorry it took a little bit longer, but those gems, thank you.
Awesome. I'll invite Roseanne to just come on up. We take a few photos as I ask for only. Who's hungry? Who is angry? No one.